Welcome back to another episode of Matters of the Heart and Soul podcast. This is your host, Russell Bruce. And today we have another special guest, Mr. Leif Robertson. And this one's a little unique right here. Let me tell you how we actually cross paths. So on Facebook, I'm always trying to post inspirational posts every day. And about a year or so ago, I started getting a lot of followers with some of the videos that I was putting out there, my reels. And so I end up with a lot of bots, people saying crazy stuff, and I go to their page, find out they're not even humans, they were just bot pages, right? And then I run across a guy who consistently posts very deep, thoughtful responses to some of my posts. And a lot of times it was in line with what I was saying. Like we agreed pretty much on everything, right? And I had to check him out to make sure he wasn't a bot. And recently I reached out to him, so that I could talk to him and say, hey, like, why don't we do a podcast and have a dialogue and see where it goes? Because I think we could talk about a lot of different things that a lot of other people out there can get some value in it, right? Instead of just a post on Facebook, we're going to have a candid conversation. We've only spoken one time other than today. And once again, Mr. Leif Robertson. And Leif, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Bruce. It's good to be here, and it's great to know you, man.
All
It's great to
right,
know you.
my man. And so let's just start off. I'm not going to read any bio or anything. Who is Leif Robertson?
Well, that's a tough one, but I am. Well, I am. I think I mentioned in the thing you asked me to send over that I am a high functioning autistic person. I think, like I said, that comes with some disadvantages I have to work through. With some other significant advantages. I think that's definitely part of who I am. But I also try these days not to identify myself in any way. I think when we do that, we create illusions, and I try to just be who I am, an ever-changing spirit like you. And but I've gone through a lot of things and a lot of changes, and I wasn't always the same. And as you know, I had a near-death experience that changed me. I think some of these painful things we go through in life change our perceptions, and that changes who we are, right? So,
Okay, good stuff. There's so much that we can unpack here, but let's
I'm
just
sure.
let's just talk about something you just mentioned. You said high functioning autistic.
Yeah.
All right. What's your definition of autism or being autistic?
Well, I think that autism is just. I mean, there's all types of autism, obviously. I think autistic people are very internal. You know, they create internal states, and they might have, on occasion, times communicating. You know, so, but I think that's also the real power in life. I think that they create their own worlds, and they shut out outside communication. But I also know God is internal, so that also helped me become more spiritual in that. So for me personally.
Good stuff. And you mentioned some advantages and disadvantages. Like I've seen over the years cases of people who are considered autistic savants, right? Like the guy that has the photographic memory, they fly him in a helicopter over downtown New York and he turns around and he pencils out this mural and he had all the details, even down to the window panes,
It's
like
amazing, right?
yeah. And it's like, then you see some of these people who could do like these very complex mathematical equations and it is just phenomenal. So can you just give us some advantages and disadvantages?
I would say the strong advantage for me personally has been afterthought. my afterthought and being able to process something that comes along and being able to support it consciously, I think that gives me an advantage. When I talk about these things to other people, they seem to be able to relate on some level. So that type of higher functioning, the afterthought aspects of it is a strong advantage that I guess I have. I would say the disadvantage is sometimes I could be distracted by other people's comments or background noises, those kind of things. ADHD can happen, at times, but also meditation helps me. So there you go. I mean, the balance, I have some strong cognitive abilities with some others that, people think I'm weird. I get called bizarre all my life, but I think like we said, we're all unique, right? So
Most of the most phenomenal people on the planet all have been deemed as weird. Actually,
weird. Well, normal's boring, right?
it's like if you're normal in this insane world, you're just going along, you
You're just
know.
going along with the
It's,
crowd. That's exactly
it's
right.
the insane people and the people that they're like trying to say stay away from them, don't read their book and all this other stuff. Those are the ones, okay, I want to read it and figure out, okay, what are they trying to hide, or why don't they want this person's thoughts to come out? But one of the things that intrigued me about you is your level of spirituality. And, it seems like the earth is going through this great change, and you have this great awakening occurring, and this quickening, so to speak, right? And you have some people who have no clue what's going on, and it's driving them crazy. They're doing baddie type things, right? But those who seem to have figured this thing out, right? That they're calm, and it's almost like a blessing in the storm, so to speak. So can you speak a little bit about your spiritual awakening? Like, when did it occur?
Okay. I don't like the terms like enlightenment or woke, although awakening is exactly accurate, but because of how people try to perceive those words, like, oh, I'm enlightened, so I'm using my ego here, or being woke. Well, it is an awakening because you're realizing more so who you are, what you are. So in that sense, but also I don't like to say, hey, I'm woke and this person is something else. But I can tell you that it happened uh, near death. Um, I got very sick, pneumonia. So sick, I didn't even know to go to the hospital. And then I stopped answering the phone. And then I had to, my mother was like, where you been? She came and they made me go to the hospital. Right. And it turns out that I had like some blood in my lung and then I had to have surgery. So I almost died in the hospital and I was there for months.
What's the time frame? Like, how long ago was this?
4 years ago.
Okay.
That was not the beginning. So that's just what the beginning of what happened. I mean, having that experience, but the experience that after that is even worse in that, I was in the same type of work, but I lost everything, because I guess because I didn't save or whatever, and then I had to rebuild my life in it every way, financially, who I am. I took a hard look at myself. When we look at ourselves, that's when the waking comes. I think maybe it happened fast. It did happen fast, but it wasn't maybe an instant thought. It was more like looking at myself in bad ways and being conscious of my thoughts and then realizing what we are spiritually. It wakes me up to a signal. It's more like it's hard to explain why I started meditating and losing my ego dissolution. So when you lose your lower self, right, your lower self isn't really real, you know. I guess that's kind of what I wouldn't mind talking about is um, in a lot of religions, the ego is manifested by the devil. That's what they say, you know. I mean, all these things, they're just how you think other people perceive you is a mirrored perception, a mirrored projection of your illusion, right? So you're not, that's, it's false, it's not real. But I'm getting in touch with your higher self, and then I studied Buddhism, which kind of rejects that. But Vedanta, sacred geometry, um, meditation practices, and these things opened up my spirit in a way. And when that happens, that's when you change. But the change never ends. You know, the thirst continues, and you start recognizing things about yourself, old thought patterns. They come back, and you're like, wow, that's the scary part of the awakening, right? You awaken, and it's kind of beautiful, and then you're like, wow, look at these illusions I created throughout my entire life. You know what I mean? I mean, I created all these illusions and all these thought processes and these patterns that created the same scenarios over and over again. So then the work begins, you know, the work begins, and it never ends, you know, the thirst, the hunger, the longing to learn and to seek to know myself.
How much of a role do you feel that the religious institutions, the schooling that we receive, uh, even the way the medical industry moves, like how much of a role do you think that plays in developing this false sense of reality? Like, for example, when we're born, we're given a name,
Right.
we're given a tribe, we're given like all these identifiers. But if we're spiritual beings having a physical experience that we call life, are,
Right.
are we really these things, right?
No, we're not.
Or are we
Absolutely not.
something else? And it's like we one day wake up and realize, and sometimes it takes near death experiences. It takes the death of a loved one. It takes some type of shaking up for people to delve deeper and try to figure out like a deeper meaning of life. How big of a role do you think that these institutions have played in developing this false ego or false reality?
I'd say that a pretty big one. I would say that society as a whole creates a systematic level and a hierarchy, right? And what does the ego do, right? It judges. Why does it judge? Because it can't think. It is afraid, right? So we create these levels of, hero worship or wealth or this, and we think that is what we should strive for, you know, and we self promote, right? We promote ourselves and we think that's how life should be. And everything in society has dictated how to be and how to steer. And it's not really anyone's fault or something maybe, I mean, I think certain aspects of certain religions have been designed to control it. Absolutely. I think, like you said, spirituality is a very powerful thing. And there are people that want to control that. And they'll do that through religious dogma.
So,
What do you think? What do you think about that? I mean,
yeah, and so that leads me into this question because I believe that there are fundamental differences between religion and spirituality.
absolutely. I think the main one that we probably both know is spirituality is personal. It's your personal relationship with divinity or your personal divinity, right? And I think that's what Jesus was trying to teach. But I think if Jesus was alive today, he wouldn't approve Christianity, right? Jesus wasn't Christian. Buddha wasn't Buddhist. We've heard all this. So spirituality is not about following a person,
No.
right? It's about following the message, right? We take those messages internally and we follow them. If we follow a person, that's false. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I
What do you
think
think?
yeah, that's a big part of what's happening in the society today. Too many people get wrapped up in the messenger instead of the message, and they only accept truth from certain people or certain doctrines. And the thing is,
Right.
one of my good friends one day, he said, the truth is the truth because it's true, not because who says it.
Yeah, he's right. He's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think though, I think all the religions, that being said, right? I think the original underlying message, they're all the same, right? I mean, at the core of them all.
Yeah, at the core. And I think down the line they get distorted, right? There was this I don't know if the book ever came out. I think it was called like Pope Annalisa or whatever. I was reading it online. This guy was talking about it. The book was come out in the future. I never did go back to see if it came out. But in there, he made a comment that stuck with me. He said that prophets speak the heart of God and their followers create religions.
Say that one more time. Sorry.
It said that prophets speak the heart of God and their followers create religion.
No,
So
absolutely.
you have, a situation like Yeshua or Jesus, Muhammad, uh, Buddha. You have these people who were master teachers and really trying to teach people how to tap into their own divinity.
Oh, right.
Right. And, and they taught, like Jesus always said that the kingdom was within you. He didn't say, he said the people would be searching to and fro.
Yeah, so like if we were to talk about and try to define God, which is a little crazy, right? But I can tell
You
you
could
first,
attempt, though. You could
yeah,
attempt.
I can accept it. I can tell you first what God isn't, or what I don't believe God is, and this is where I would get into a little bit of a dispute, but it's not worth arguing about. Is God is not some old man in the sky with a cane or a staff concerned with the fate of mankind. Hey, no, I mean, if you really want to know what I think God is well, it's us. It's inside of us, right? It just has to be activated, and I think it's found in nature and everything. So God is basically me, you, the birds, the bees, the grass, and consciousness. So I think from a pantheistic view, I would say that is God, but also God is beyond that as well, the physical. I think we're all fragments of God.
Yeah, and I think we could dig deeper into that one,
We
man.
can. It doesn't matter too much.
Because here's the thing. It's like when you look at the psyop programs that have been done with religion, like one saying that God is a man, saying he, and how certain cultures to this day like dominate women by creating these male chauvinist murder cults. This one is
Yeah.
and they subjugate women, people of color, like for example, like even studying the history of America and the doctrine of discovery is like
Right.
how Pope Alexander the Sixth, after Columbus came here and well, he never came to North America. That's a whole nother story. He went to the islands. He never came to North America. It was just so
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah. But anyway, but it was through religion that they used the religion to conquer the indigenous people of America, Africa,
Sure.
by saying they're not Christians. So they're coming in the name of God, acting like the devil
Yeah.
to
exactly.
steal land, to pillage, and everything else. But to me, like when we talk about God, like I agree with you. God's not this man up in the clouds, keeping score and watching. I personally think you could even begin to conceive what God is without thinking about energy, right? Because our spirit body is a light body, it's an energetic body, right? And energy is that one thing that's never been created nor destroyed. It just moves and changes shape and form.
Right.
So that's
It's science, right?
right. So that's the spirit that exists within us is more of a microcosm of the macrocosm. So it's like
Yep.
we are all sparks of the divine.
Absolutely. There
That
you go.
spark is within each and every one of us. It's within every inanimate and animate object. So, like you were saying, it's like when you go out in nature, everything in nature is based upon natural laws, right?
Absolutely.
Some people call them the hermetic laws or whatever, but it's like I always say, like people who have all these different religious beliefs or whatever, come as a Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Taoist, whatever your religious persuasion is. If everybody gets on a roof, here we have the law of gravity. People debate whether gravity exists or not, but we're going to call it gravity, right? All of them get up there on the same roof, same elevation, and they jump and call out for their savior or their religion. The laws, these natural laws, don't give a damn about what you believe.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh, yeah, all they care about is whether or not you are following the law.
yeah. So natural law is a funny thing, right? I mean, spirituality is very powerful. It makes you think you can do all things, and you can, but you are still victim to the physical world right now. And that's, but God, the spark of God is, yes, I agree, is inside of us. And I think tapping into that is really what it's about. I mean, they say like in Vedanta, they say that okay, so it takes 8 minutes or 7 minutes for the sun to hit your face, right? So and then even a moment for a thought to form, right? So that means they say if that means then everything we touch and experience is actually a memory or a memory bubble. And so in the exact present moment of all of us is outside of time and the birth of creation, which so exists within us. And I think that's the spark of God and the connection that you see in nature. That I also experience when I meditate. I try to meditate in within nature because of my connection to it. I think we're all connected, and even quantum mechanics says that we're connected, right? So, you study quantum entanglement, right? What does that mean? That means that one particle is also somewhere else. So everything is connected, and everything is divine. That's how I kind of choose to see it. Sorry, I went on a tangent.
No, 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 no. That's good stuff. So, you hear people always talking about the universe, but then now with the study of quantum mechanics or the quantum reality, you're talking about the multiverse that
Yeah,
you
yeah.
go for it.
Well, okay. So that's like some ends of science that are theoretical, right? I mean,
Right.
they also say, but I mean, there's a lot of things that some of these theories, and nobody knows everything, right? Suppose maybe we do, and a lot of the learning is that I've experienced. The deeper learning that I've had is less about learning, more about discovery. It's more like a revealing, unveiling. Whenever I find something about myself, it's more like a remembering or something like that. I think on the quantum mechanics side, they say that the universe is constantly seeking to know itself. And when it does, it creates a new identity. And that's the same thing with us. We're ever changing spirits. One maybe permanent state, but we're always changing or shifting.
Yeah, and I
So
agree. I agree with that. So it's a lot of like for example, the word educare, which is the root of the word education, right? Meaning
right. Yeah.
to pull out that which is within, like that there's nothing new under the sun. All you're doing is remembering who you are, right? And
Yeah,
this journey that we call life, this soul journey in this short classroom that we're here,
it is a
it
classroom.
like that journey to me is trying to remember that we are divine, right? That we are children of the Most High. Like, so if your father and mother are these universal prime creators, and you're made in that image, you are also a universal creator or say
Absolutely.
co-creator. So I believe that we do create our life.
Yeah.
I think I had to give up the philosophy of waiting for a savior, especially once you start digging deep and find out that
No.
every
Yeah.
religious philosophy has been waiting 2,500 years, 3,700 years for a savior to come back to save them.
Yeah.
Why the people that control those faiths clean their clock and become extremely wealthy while they wait and they're living heaven on earth. And most people are having these hellish experiences waiting to live in a place that has streets paved with gold
Yeah.
after, but gold is right underneath your feet. Milk and honey is right here on this land. So it's like, why not get it here? And that was the whole thing about, I believe in bringing heaven to earth, right?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that was the whole goal. That
They Alan Watts said, oh, I didn't mean to interrupt, but Alan Watts has a quote. Do you know who Alan Watts is?
say their last name.
Do you know who Alan Watts? Alan Watts.
Oh yeah. I fall
Yeah.
asleep listening to Alan on a regular basis, man.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So one of the things he said,
Philosophy.
yeah,
Yeah,
he's more Eastern path, but I think some of the things he said was like, the Bible doesn't contain facts. It contains myths, but when fully understood, reveal the nature of the human psyche. I think what you're saying is, I think heaven and hell are states of being that we create within
exactly.
within the present moment, right? And so
Exactly.
that's what it's all about.
Yeah, they're states of consciousness. So it's like
Absolutely.
right now as we speak, someone's living in hell. Like there are people being tortured, all kind of heinous things occurring in their life. And
Right.
a lot of people hold these things in and they're living a hellish existence here. And sometimes they feel death is a relief, right?
Yeah.
So you have other people who are in the south of France, they earn their money the right way and they're living good. Their health is like immaculate. They
As
have,
far as we know.
well, yeah, I'm just giving an example of an extreme example, and they have knowledge of self, right? And those people are living heaven on earth. You know what I mean? And they may not want to cross over. So, but
A lot of people are very, I think, and I mean, they say that, a lot of things is like, the same patterns trap us into that Ouroboros, and I think the real spark comes from our pain, right? Remember, I was telling you, I don't know where, I guess I said it in the bio, you know, um, with Rumi's quote, right? The cure for the pain is the pain. I hate using phrases and not thinking for myself. I think that, there's always going to be bad things happen to good people all the time.
yes,
and you're not going to be able to wrap your head around that, and you're not going to be able to bypass it. It's Murphy's law, right? And but I think that the inner spark, you carry that helps you navigate through the problems of the physical world and to grow from them. I think that is the real and experience the experience, no matter how good or bad it is, the important aspect of all of it. What do you
So
think?
so we're talking about a lot of different things here. We're talking about spirituality, we're talking about religion, philosophy.
Yeah,
So what
well,
do
it's
you
all the same. Well,
yeah,
I mean, like psychology to me is also spiritual. I mean, or it should be. Certain aspects of knowledge of self and why you do the things you do because of your history and your experience and the things you're going through, right? That's the study of self. So the study of you is a spiritual thing, and philosophy is how to live it, and religion, pulling out the right aspects, there's a lot of spirituality in that. It's all spiritual for me. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. All of the sciences kind of tie in to that spiritual aspect because the way I look at it is spirituality is just sacred science.
It is. Yeah. That is a good way of putting it.
Yeah, and like if you look back at say the Egyptian mystery systems and all the more ancient methods that brought us to where we're at today, it's like it was tied around science, right? That's why they
Yeah.
can't figure out how the pyramids were built. So it
And
it had to be like done under a form of high spirituality and science, right? Like whether they were using science, like using sound technology or what have you. It's like you can't do that during a time of war. That's why like today in this society where like I don't think since the inception of America that there hasn't been a war. And it's like
wow.
you can't build things like that in a world currently that we live in. And I think that's why they're finding all these ancient structures and things that
Absolutely.
are not replicable. And it's only because you're not going to find it out there. You're going to have to find it in here.
I think that the ancient cultures recognize that as something we lost along the way. And with the war and things you talk about, I think mankind as a whole seems to repeat themselves again. And we learn right at the edge or brink of destruction, right? It's always after a world war, or it's like during or after a world war, we start recognizing that this is wrong and we seek for a cure. I mean, sometimes that's how war gets started too, but I mean, for the most part, I hope that we learn. And it seems like now, like you're talking about, yeah, I think there's like a higher consciousness revolution going on. And that would be some real exciting stuff. Yeah. So interesting times we live in.
Oh, definitely. I think this is probably the most pivotal time in human history, right?
Right, for
And,
sure.
you know, America is faced with the same thing that Egypt, Greece, Rome, Atlantis, Lemuria, if you want to take it
You want to
there.
go there? Sure.
So it's like they all came to this same crossroads and we're there. Like, are we going to make the same mistakes? It's like it seems like technology has surpassed our humanity and our level of spirituality, or it's in the hands of those who are not as spiritual. So will they use it to control and destroy, or will they use it to uplift humanity?
Right.
And,
Exactly.
and I think that's where we're at. And that's why I think conversations that we're having will help other people. Like, I don't want people to believe anything I say. It's like, if anything, I would just like to spark people to think deeper, right? And go research and find out more. It's like because we tend to when we accept, say, a religion, we have these set of ideas that are just passed down.
right? And we can't look beyond them,
Yeah, and if you never question them, you can never grow outside of that proverbial box, right?
right?
And the human soul is way beyond these box of ideas. And I think that's the greatest secret, that we are these phenomenal spiritual beings that have so much potential. And I think that's what Jesus, Yeshua, was trying to convey to the masses, but people are caught up in worship. And if he was here, he would demand you to change, but people would be like, "No, I just want to follow you." But no, it's like you'll do greater things, right?
Yeah. But have you heard the Gnostic point of view as far as
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead, give me some of that because
well, it's just interesting, I mean, it still sounds a little mythical, but the understanding, like I was bringing up Carl Jung, and he said that the Gnostics were our first philosophers, and he's not wrong. So the Gnostics believed that the God in the Old Testament, he believed that he took us from the greater God called the One or the Source. That's mentioned in the Gnostic Bibles, and trapped us here in time and matter, and it was Jesus, right? And the serpent in Eden that wanted to free us with knowledge, gnosis of our divinity. And that's what a lot of the Gnostic texts talk about. Not following the message, not the messenger.
yeah, so that
I,
goes to another thing. So my familiarity with that is the difference between, say, exoteric and esoteric religion philosophy, right? So you have, like, let's take the big three. You have Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, right?
well, those are all Abrahamic.
Right, right. But these are
Okay,
just,
you're excluding the Eastern
yeah,
philosophy.
for the sake of time and everything, I'm just
Okay,
giving an
fair
example
enough.
of the
Sure.
difference, because the Gnostics come out of Christianity, right? So that's the esoteric side of Christianity. Then within Islam, you have the Sufi order. That's where Rumi and these other guys, they were Sufi. So it was a secret order, and then under the Judaic, or say Hebrew faith, you had the Kabbalists, right? And we talked about that the other day when we talked. So those three on the esoteric side were more so into deeper spirituality, and they could all come together in agreement, and they were more similar than different. But on the surface, with the exoteric religion, they're at war. They're at war. They just look at each other as different and don't realize, like, the
They
underlying
know. They
foundation
miss it.
you mentioned earlier, right? And that's why you see in the world today, more people have been murdered in the name of religion than anything.
No one has been killed more than in the name of their God. That that and what money. Those are the two things that create war. And yet we don't realize that God is within, right? So I think that's what we lose. We lose our divinity when we point outward and look and judge. You're right, absolutely.
Yeah, and you mentioned something earlier when you were talking about, like, the time that it takes for the sun to hit the face and thought,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So I was thinking, when you mentioned that, like, as far as religion, we talked about, I read a book back in the day by Albert Churchward called Evolution: The Origin of Religion. And
Ah, neat. Who wrote that? Albert?
Albert Churchward.
Okay.
And he, in the book, discussed how in the ancient world they had different religious, they say cults, right? Cult is the root word of cultures and whatever. It depends on who's listening, whether they want to demonize it or not. Get the information, lose
Right.
lose all the woo-woo fear and all that other stuff, right? You'll never grow if you don't look at it for what it is. But they talked about stellar cults, lunar cults, and solar cults, right? And I think I mentioned this to you before, right? Like, right now we're under a solar calendar, right? Which is based
Right.
on the sun. and it was not so much sun worship. Some cultures maybe they did worship the sun, but under the lunar we had a different calendar, right? Like right now we have a 12-month calendar, which is dealing with the sun in the 12 disciplines of nature, the sun
Right.
cycle.
Yeah.
And I'm going somewhere with this. I'm gonna come back to it and I'm gonna ask you a question. And then
No, okay.
you have some of these others like that may be tied to the moon, like tied to moon worship, where we had 13-month calendars that the Ethiopians to this day still use a 13-month calendar with 28 days, right? And then it's even tied more so to the woman, where you have the moon astral cycle, the menstrual cycle, where, they're composed of almost 80% water, like slightly more than the male species, right? And
Is that right? Okay.
yeah, so it's like you have this moon astral menstrual cycle is tied to that, right? So
Ah, it's fascinating.
you had the Isis worship and
Right.
each star, like you can go off on a tangent with all these other philosophies and things.
Absolutely.
So you have like say Islam has a crescent star with the moon. Then you have the Star of David in the Hebrew faith, which is more of a stellar cult dealing with the cosmology of where we are. So these ancients were always tied into like the physiology and the cosmology, right? Like where are you in the galaxy on Earth and within your being? Like they were scientists, right? And that's why I say science and spirituality are one and the same. Like
Yeah,
spirituality,
absolutely.
science. But going back to the sun, right? How much do you feel was anthropomorphized of the sun in the 12 zodiac gates to bring us the story of Jesus and the 12 disciples?
Can you rephrase that a little bit? I'm not sure.
Well, is it just coincidental that the sun cults, right?
Yeah.
Like for example, the Council of Nicaea 325 AD is where a lot of Christianity was formed that we see today, right? Under Constantine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 325 AD, right? And the thing is, so the Hebrew faith, they worship on Saturday, right? Saturday
Right.
is the seventh day of the week. And you study Latin or Spanish, Sabido or Sabbath is the seventh day of the week. You see what I'm saying? So you have
Yeah.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, all the way down, right? That's what you have Seventh-day Adventist belief there, the seventh day, yada yada. So, but under Constantine, they changed worship from Saturday to Sunday because they were tied to a solar cult dealing with the
Right.
sun and the sky, right?
Right.
And I'll give you one other thing here. The word Holy Bible comes from Helios Biblios, meaning the book of the sun in the
Book of the
sky.
Sun. Oh, wow.
SUN. So you go back and look at the Greek and Latin meaning, it's the book of the sun. And then you have the 12 disciples, the 12 zodiac gates, right?
12. Yeah. Yeah.
Or 12 disciplines of nature. So all I'm saying is this, like Zeitgeist put out a video on it as well. But you have a situation where I challenge anybody, where's the burial sites for all these prophets? Where's Peter? Where's Mary? Okay, Jesus was
It's
resurrected.
it's very metaphoric. Is what I would probably tell you and agree with you, which I think is what you're getting at here. Um,
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, I mean, everything is the underlining meaning and metaphor. Even Jesus didn't really, he spoke in parables, right? So why would you take the Bible so literally? If he's speaking in metaphorically in one end, then maybe everything is kind of metaphoric in its understanding.
Yeah, and you have different ways to interpret that, right? Because I've read some
Sure.
things that he would talk in parables because they didn't want
The code or
they
something
say
really.
like the people, the evil people to hijack the wisdom and use it for evil. Like you hear stuff like that, you hear different things, right? But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
believe Yeshua, I believe there was a person that lived and walked, but I think some of the attributes and things that they say are mixed in with this sun worship where they anthropomorphize the sun, which goes back to metaphor, right? They've taken it and twisted it, and like for example, the Romans were the enemies of Jesus, right? How can the enemies bring you a faith and tell you the story of liberation? They're not gonna do that. It's of
okay.
conquest, and to this day they use it for conquest. They don't use it for liberation, and that's the importance of us seeking, right? To dig and find the deeper, more esoteric Gnostic teachings. Like, what was he actually talking about? What did he do during those last years? Where was he at?
Yeah, and I mean, the history, all of that is very fascinating. The words of Christ, the words of Buddha, Vedanta is pretty much what I was telling you about with the time, and the creation existing inside of you. But I think even the Gnostics knew that, well, God is internal. I think that's what they were saying. God is everywhere, but he's also within you. And those are the words that may have been original. That's also up for debate, though. We don't really know. We don't really know which interpretation is correct. I mean, that's a big problem. I think it doesn't matter.
Yeah, is one of them right, or do all of them have a little bit of truth in
They, yeah, I think they all do. I mean, I think when you look at Gnosticism, I think it really there's a lot of spirituality in there. But I think again, you need to look deeper in at the underlying message. But yeah, they also said I'm not really sure, but I think they discovered the Gnostic text that predated the Bible. But then there's debates as to which was first, right? I'm not sure it matters, but
Yeah, because it's like I went down those rabbit holes as well, right? I've read some of the last books of the Bible, right?
yeah,
And, it's kind of fascinating when you read them, you'll see that a lot of it looks like it was remixed and incorporated into the New Testament. So
sure.
these books were around during the same time when, and yeah, and no, some of it, right? It just depends, right? So the Roman Catholic Church had canons. So the popes and bishops decided which books would go into the Bible and which would not, right?
Right.
Yeah.
What would be omitted and
Right.
what was
And
kept.
yeah, and
And that's about the control, right? I mean,
right.
it's not like really a matter of what's true. They're not seeking what's true. It's what can be accepted to elevate the church and its power.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I think that's probably what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And so they took the
Which,
books that they didn't deem would fit their agenda, and I'm gonna call them the agenda because that's exactly what it was. And but the thing is, if you go out and you dig, and like why don't they talk about Jesus having brothers and stuff like that? Like he wasn't Mary's only child, like because it takes the human aspect out. Why did it take 325 years after his death before they decided that he was God in flesh? Like people have to ask themselves these questions, and why all the ecumenical councils, not just Council of Nicaea, all the rest of the councils where they're constantly adding and deleting and changing like things, right? Like before there was no hell, then there's a hell.
right,
Reincarnation was spoken about, in a lot of the ancient texts, and then all of a sudden it was taken out. It's like God wasn't doing these things, men were doing these things.
men were doing these altering those words.
Yeah. So, and it's like, and were these really the word of God, or were they just men who were inspired? No different than people who walk the face of the earth today. Like God didn't stop sending prophets and prophetess, and God speaks to women just like he speaks to men. Like, how come we don't hear the voice of Mary Magdalene like being spoken about? Like things of that nature, right?
Yeah. I mean, there you go. You got the mythology aspect of all of it. You know, we have the mythology, and then we have the meaning of the mythology, right?
Right.
And then you can explore the depths, and then you got to find out what's real. You know, I think certain aspects of that we will never fully know, but
Yeah.
I mean, we're not meant to know everything, or we can only look to our history and say, this is what we are, this is what we can learn from it.
So, question. So, with all that we're talking about, like, what are some of the things you do on a daily basis that keep you grounded and moving forward?
Well, you mean besides work, right?
Yeah, like you mentioned,
Beyond,
meditate
yeah,
and
I do.
pray and things like that, like those type things.
Yeah, let me just tell you something, my fiance brought up a rather interesting thing. I think she's right. She said if we all meditated in school instead of doing the Pledge of Allegiance or spent that time, the world would be a better place.
Oh,
I I think that she's not wrong at all.
I
I think that meditation is a better form of prayer. No offense to anybody that prays. And prayer is more like magic, the witchcraft that we did, back then. What did we do? We did one of two things. We either gave thanks, right? For great gratitude, express gratitude, or we asked for something. And those are the two things that came from the whole of paganism, right? But meditation and all its forms, it's the ability to lose yourself in the present moment and feel the universal consciousness that is your divinity in God. And that is what helps me get navigate through the world. Um, I think on days that I can't, it's like me not having my coffee. I mean, I didn't have my coffee today, so yeah, I'm in a bad mood because I didn't meditate. So I think meditation has really improved my life here dramatically, and it's really empowered my spirit and enhanced my spirituality. So that's one thing, absolutely. And when I do that, I'm in touch with nature. Um, I will begin meditating with the sound of a cat purring or the birds outside, the space between them. I feel, the connection is not at the gym or on social media, but within the earth and the sky and in the ground. And I think that we can experience that in meditation and become one with that and feel our connection of all the things. Um, we also do music, and I'm an artist and a weirdo since you asked. But I mean, and then I have my work and my work life, and I go through work and I do those things that I have to do for survival. But in the back, I still always have that going. That supports me.
good stuff, man. And music is probably one of the greater therapies, right? Because it allows
Absolutely.
hemisync the left and right brain. It's one of the only things that allows you to do that. So,
Yeah, well, I think if you really want to get even heavier into it, there are two aspects of thought, right? We have we could express, we create these things that don't exist. We worry about what could happen, and we create these scenarios in our head, and they turn out not to even be real, right? They're like these illusions, but that's still our creativity moving, right? So I think when we end up knowing ourselves the most, it's when we're comfortable enough to create something new. And I think we do that with our creativity and our emotion and our passion for love, which is another big topic, my man. Talking about
Oh,
love
big time.
because love is what motivates everything and everything you do, whether you want to admit it or not. Uh, Let me just take this through to you. So maybe even your everything is a physical reaction, those emotions, but love is the connection, right? The connection to all the things, the connection to the source, the connection to God, and it dictates everything you do in life, whether you want to admit it, including your lower emotions, anger, which is fear itself, and then you got jealousy, validation. Those are just an imbalance of that connection. Yeah, those bad emotions from the imbalance of the connection, and then the positive emotions from the raw connection of the source. I hope that makes sense.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. It's like in this universe, there's only two real so-called emotions, right?
Right.
Love and fear, and everything else is a derivative of love and fear.
Heaven and hell, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
and the
so it's
imbalance.
like every decision that we make, it's like you have to ask yourself, like, did I do that out of love or did I do it out of fear? And I hear people, oh, you should fear God. And my philosophy is
No,
you should love God. You
absolutely.
should love God and get to know God, right? It's like not believing God. Like I don't like, do you believe in your parents or do you know your parents? You know your parents, right? You don't
Yeah, absolutely.
believe.
Fear driven anything is what's detrimental to
You,
it, to your soul and your spirit. And sin is the sinister construct designed by religious dogma to make you believe you're unworthy of love. I mean,
and yeah, and
so
sin is really anti-nature. It's going against the laws of nature.
absolutely.
And it's like when people, and you said it right, like love, when you're in love, when you're living in love, right? It's like everything makes sense at that point, right? Because now you're living in harmony and one with nature. Because you could only love and experience other things to the depths that you love yourself.
Right.
Think
That's
about it.
true.
You can't go
Right.
to an orange tree to get lemons.
Nope.
So, and too many people today do that. Like, so it's like the quest, if we don't share anything else but this today, is people need to learn how to love themselves, right? And when you think of the creator, yes, you were made in the image of the creator. And when you look in the mirror, you should see the creator because the creator is within you. And that's what all the teachings, everything was about. Is like you could debate that all you want to, but it's like the person in the mirror is going to come to save you when you wake up and realize that God is giving you everything that you'll ever need to conquer this life and to move forward in this spiritual journey, like beyond this world, right? So I definitely wholeheartedly agree that love is the key, and love is what we seek to obtain. And once we have it for ourselves, then we want it for others, right? So now you could extend love to your family members, to your coworkers, to your community, to your nation, to the world. And once we reach that level, now will we ever reach 100%? No, but we could reach that critical mass to where, like, was it Malcolm Gladwell calls the tipping point? We just need
Right.
the tipping point where we get enough of us that wake up, that are seeking truth and want to share that kind of truth and make this a utopian heavenly place on earth, right?
It's a beautiful dream. Absolutely. I mean, that's something that we should all strive for. We should all strive for ascension here and now, and not seek for death or the end. We're gonna seek for, I'm not gonna live my life for death. I die when I die. I can die tomorrow. I have to be able to accept who I am now. And that's what matters. I think moving forward, like beautiful utopian society would be beautiful. I don't know if it's possible, but I feel like maybe we're on the verge. Maybe we're on the verge of war too. I mean, do you know where the word apocalypse came from?
Well, it actually is tied more to revealing than what people
Yes.
think.
Yes.
It's more of a revelation. That's what we're living in right now.
Yeah,
And you
absolutely.
can see the energy is the whole earth is changing its vibration. So if people want to continue to live on it, they're gonna have to change and learn how to live in love, harmony, peace, or else it'll force you to destroy yourself.
Yeah, you ever see those you have some people that have that theory where the world is going to divide into two, you know, and you know, the choice would be where you go. One the old world will die, the new one will be reborn. And maybe the apocalypse is about that change or the end. And whenever anything ends, no matter what it is, there's always a new beginning, whether that's a war or whatever.
Yeah, and that you're right, right. And so when they say divide, people like once again, it's like everything is not so much literal, it's more metaphoric, right? So we're talking multi-dimensional, right? So like even when people think of something like the rapture, like you're going up, like could it be that you're going up in vibrational frequency? Like you're going up that octave scale, like where now you're able.
You're in tune with with the spirit. I think it's your connection to the spirit or the source or the higher. I think, and they say that the vibrations of, and I have diagrams, but I'm not going to pull out diagrams, but you know, the highest vibration is spirit, and it's moving so fast that it appears to be still. So, I mean,
Facts. And that's like sitting there, lay on your bed, turn your ceiling fan on. You start off, you can see the blades, then it starts to spin, then it
yeah,
almost
like
appears
one thing.
one solid object. But that's everything that we see, whether it's this microphone, the walls, what have you. Everything has electric potential and is in vibration. It's just moving. It's moving at such a rate that you look at it, it appears to be physical.
All life is with Einstein will tell you all life is vibration. So everything that vibrates, even plants. Have you ever hear of VOCs?
VOCs. Say
Yeah, it's a volatile organic compound. It's chemicals that are evaporate in the air and actual plants. I have plants all over. I'm surrounded by them. Plants actually communicate through VOC, and they can even warn when they sense danger. So plants don't have brains, but they still have consciousness.
they're
So
very, very conscious.
right, so consciousness is everything. It's everywhere. I think when we raise our spirit, we're in touch with our consciousness and we have a higher level of consciousness.
Yeah, I'll tell you something interesting I read years ago. I read Daniel Brinkley's book called Peace and the Light, right? So Daniel, this is when I my first encounter when that sparked me to start researching near-death experiences, right? Daniel was struck by lightning and died on the table during surgery.
You had one of those experiences, huh?
Yeah, and he crossed over. But one of the things that he actually got struck by lightning twice and died, and he explains what he was experiencing. He leaves his body in spirit, and he's over top of his body, and the doctors and the nurses in the room. He even was like floating down the hallway where he was above the light fixtures, right? And you know, he's seen where somebody may have thrown, say, like an eraser or something that's sitting up on top. And when he come back, he's telling these things, right? But one of the things that he mentioned is when he was out of his body after he physically had died or temporarily had died, he
Right.
said that the plants in the room were more concerned about him than the people.
Wow.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Said that the plants were more concerned for him than the people. That he could actually feel the plants because everybody tells these stories like how they become one with everything because they become that light or energy body, right? And they could communicate with everything, and everything's so revealing. And he could hear the conversations between the doctors and the nurses, and who was like writing him off, who was thinking that, hey, we should try to shock this guy back to life. But anyway, he comes back. But that's something interesting. But if you read, I think he had a couple different.
What's it called again? I'm
It's
sorry.
called Peace in the Light
Peace in the Light.
by Daniel Brinkley.
Daniel, there's a lot of people that have written about. Well, I could, my girlfriend, I believe she said she died 3 times. So yeah, so you hear these things, and a lot of the experiences seem to be the same thing. I don't know about the light at the tunnel and those kind of aspects, but yeah, I mean, and then you could also experience, we get into other topics, but I see more esoteric topics like
Yep.
astral projection, dimensional use, but I don't want to overreach anything.
Yeah, exactly. So let's
Yeah.
wrap up here. So, what book or books would you recommend listeners out there to read?
Oh, wow. So I've been inspired by a lot of different authors and studies. And I mean, I would say, again, the Buddhism, the Vedanta, the Egyptians, the ancient Gnostics. But I also study, psychology. Carl Jung is great. You hear a lot of people talking about shadow work. Like every time you bring up spirituality these days, it's like a buzzword every time someone, passes gas, you say shadow work. But I mean, if you really want to understand it, I think one of his great quotes was, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You understand your reactions, and that your actions are not even you are the observer. I think I think I think he bridges the gap between psychology and spirituality. Other Arthur, so that book, a good book would be Psychology of the Unconscious. That's mine. It's a great book. Um, it has some deep advanced references in psychology that might be like thrown off initially, but he explains it so well ultimately that it doesn't really matter. You don't have to have a psychological background. Another great book that is very meaningful to me was Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. That's a very special book. You talk about the heart of Stoicism, that has the acceptance of who you are and then going through life as you. So that's a very heavy book. And then we can talk about things like the Kabbalion and others. There's a lot of great books out there.
And do you read, like, say, the Bible, the Quran?
I don't read the Quran. Um, Not that I would object to ever reading it. I read the Bible. I read many parts of different aspects of variations of the Bible, spirituality, to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, to the Egyptian Book of the Dead, to the Holy Bible, to anything I can get my hands on. All I have is limited time, so
Yeah.
it's hard to read everything. I wish I could just study all the time. I don't even, since I guess I can say one of the biggest things that happened to me with the change and whatever we want to call it, awakening type thing, I would say was the thirst is definitely there. I'm always like studying and reading. I unplug the TV. I don't really put on the TV at all, which makes me a little bit of a weirdo too.
Yeah.
I'd rather read a book or listen to a podcast or hear people talking about these kind of things. Yeah, you're guilty too. We're all guilty, right? So I mean those are the things that now I just want to promote within myself, and I study everything, esoteric philosophy, religions. It's all beautiful, when you can pull out and determine what's real and how. And what's even more important is the knowledge is not really the power, right? And knowledge is never power, it's the ability to take these things and apply them.
There you
Apply
go.
them to your spirit, and that is the real power. And I'm always learning, right? So I don't like to preach, I don't teach, I'm always a student. Like that's the way to do it.
Yeah, you just said a mouthful right there. Because the thing is, it's like it's knowledge, wisdom, understanding, right? You got nothing,
Absolutely,
go out and seek knowledge, but it doesn't become wisdom until you apply it, right?
absolutely.
Then having understanding on knowing when to apply that knowledge in what situation.
Would you run to a healer, right? To help you heal if their life is a mess and they couldn't heal themselves? The answer would be no, right? So we have to be able to apply these things for ourselves, elevate our own life. And it's good to be able to study and learn these things, but then we have to be able to apply them to our life. Otherwise, they're just meaningless words in a way. They might change us hearing them, but to be able to use them.
Yeah, you just touched on something. One of the posts I post, I don't know, you probably seen it before I post, that your life will not change when you know what to do. Your life will change when you do what you know. Yeah,
That's wisdom, right? Wisdom is the ability to apply the knowledge.
there you go.
And that's the power. Yeah.
All right. Do you have any parting words for the listeners out there? Like anything that you'd like to say to empower the people out there?
Power to people. Well, I would say look within, right? Just look within and learn to be conscious. Because you're a receiver of those thoughts, right? But you control your free will comes in when you can guide them and apply that to your life.
Good stuff, man.
It's
Hey, Leif, thanks for
Leif.
sharing,
It's
man.
Leif, but it's okay. Doesn't matter.
You say Leif or Leaf?
It's Leif. Leif Erikson.
Leif.
Okay.
All right, my man.
It doesn't matter. This is the name.
Tomato.
Tomato. I've been called Leif all my life.
All right, my man. So this has been another episode of Matters of the Heart and Soul podcast. This is Russell Bruce, Leif Robertson, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, peace.
That was great, man. Good job.